Okay.
Good morning. We are coming to you today from the famous lake house, which belongs to my good friend, Pastor David Tart. David, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you
Glad to be here.
for lending us this wonderful location.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be outside, and it's really going to fit later on when we, pull it closer to this podcast. But anyway, so good to share the gospel with you, and I've just really enjoyed Pastor Goodson getting into the Gospel of Mark and how he just has this absolutely profound telling of how our Savior died and the salvation he brings us in the world. So, Pastor Goodson, if you want to get us going today on our last podcast in this series.
It is so very important, ladies and gentlemen, that you have a Bible with you. And hopefully sometime during this past Lent, now we are in Holy Week, that you have read the Gospel of Mark straight through. I think it's important because we are considering this as a whole, not as little bits and pieces like we hear in church or when people comment on a certain text here or there. We're trying to use it as a whole. We're trying to see it maybe as Mark wanted the people that he was writing this gospel for to see it, to read it as a whole. So that's how we're doing it. And I just invite you to read it, to sit down and read it. Mark's a short gospel. You can get it done in one sitting. Which is hard to do with a lot of books. So
16 chapters of it.
Yeah, 16. So anyway, we are in the final stages of Jesus' life. He's entered Jerusalem. He has cleared out the temple. He's had the Lord's Supper, and he's been arrested. And his disciples, as we figured, have forsook him and fled. Now, Jesus was very open, and that's one of the key things about this podcast and talking about Mark. Jesus was very open about what was going to happen to him in Jerusalem. And it's my contention, Dave, that they didn't listen, because human beings have a facility for not wanting to hear things that they don't agree with or they don't want to happen. This can't happen to Jesus. And also, we remember with the blind Bartimaeus story, Jesus has been talking about what? Discipleship. Pick up your cross, follow me, be a servant, be last to be first. Wow, it's all there. So here, on their way into Jerusalem, where Jesus knows he's going to die, and where I think the disciples think that he's going to be crowned King of the Jews, right? And they're in a hurry to get there. And this guy sitting at the side of the road is Jesus Nazareth, have mercy on me. And they tell him to shut up. No, they didn't use those words, but basically. And Jesus is the one who had to go to him. There was a opportunity for discipleship, and they missed it. So that was kind of the opening bell as we head, and it kind of defines the disciples forsaking him and fleeing. Because this is not, I think, what they thought the Messiah, the Son of God, is going to do. And maybe the folks in Mark's community were wondering about that. There's all sorts of myths going around about, Greek gods had children and they were supermen in their day and time. And for many Christians, it was easy to see Jesus as a Superman, God. And Mark goes out of his way to emphasize that that's not what we're talking about with Jesus. Remember, Christianity went out from its original Jewish environs out into a Gentile world of multiple gods and sons of gods, and myths and stories. So they had a story that goes all against that. So Mark, he begins by saying something I think that his community knew and what we know, the beginning of the gospel, good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, establishing that this is probably going to be the focus. Who is Jesus? And as we see throughout the gospel, you have the demons who are cast out by Jesus saying, "What will you have to do with us, Jesus, Son of God?" the people are amazed at his teaching and about what the authority. This guy's kind of special, right? And finally, after all these special things that Jesus did, to get to the midpoint of the gospel, Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter says, "Oh, you're the Christ." And that's when Jesus begins telling them, he's teaching them that the Son of Man, again, Jesus' identity. Jesus doesn't really embrace Messiah. He embraces Son of Man. Son of Man will be handed over and be killed, and on the third day rise. He did this 3 times. And each time the disciples misunderstood. Who's greatest? James and John want seats of honor when Jesus comes into his kingdom. So that's kind of the setup as we roll through blind Bartimaeus and finally into Jerusalem. And there at the Garden of Gethsemane, at the moment of crisis, when they come to arrest Jesus, the disciples forsake him and flee, except one. You know who that is, Pastor David? The Bible test here.
The one who, the first test was the, guess I'm not.
Who's the one who wandered into the high priest courtyard? The one disciple. It's Peter.
Peter, right. Peter, of course, I knew that.
He made it that far. And what does he do? Denies him. I don't know him. Never heard of him.
3 times. He's
3
the only
times.
one.
He made it and then he left. But then finally, they bring Jesus to the high priest. And the high priest, after questioning him and witnesses weren't agreeing and stuff like that, and he stands up, he goes, "Well, who are you? Are you the Christ, the Son of God?" And he says, "I am." But then he goes further. "And you will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven of great glory." Again, there's that Son of Man. Yes, it's the Messiah, but it's not what you're thinking. It's the Son of Man that he talked about when 3 times he predicted what would happen in Jerusalem. So he's guilty of blasphemy. They send him to Pilate. And after some back and forth, Pilate condemns him. He's on his way to the cross. He can't bear it the whole way, so that Simon of Cyrene has to carry it the rest of the way. And there he is crucified. And it's interesting, Pastor Dave, in all Gospels, they're very spare. They don't describe what happened at all. They crucified him. And in a sense, we all wonder, what did that look like? There's been many movies and stuff, but they were, in that day and time, were well aware of being crucified. And for a man to be crucified and then claim to be some kind of son of God is really strange. So they crucify him. So he's on the cross. The disciples are not there. There's indications in the other Gospels that there are disciples, but not in Mark. So we need to hold to what Mark is telling us. And the women are somewhere at a distance watching. He utters a cry from the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me?" So in the midst of the greatest agony and pain, he suffered the greatest agony of all, and that was feeling the aloneness that God is not with him. But Jesus cries in a loud voice, and it says he breathed his last. Now, again, remember, gospel opens. This is the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. That identity keeps coming up from people, from Peter, from the demons. Who is he? He says, "Are you the Messiah?" And in the trial, he says, "I am." Peter confessed him as the Messiah. But now that we get to his death, there is the one true confession of who Jesus is, and that came from guess who?
The centurion.
The centurion, a pagan, a Roman soldier. And he says,
"Truly this man was God's son."
Truly this man was God's son. When he saw how he died, This is so different from what most people in that day and time would expect. That's not what a Messiah does. That's not what a son of God does. But the whole emphasis on discipleship and losing yourself, picking up your cross and being a servant is summed up right there. This is what Jesus is talking about. And this is the true way of thinking about who Jesus is. Now, taken down from the cross, a friend from the Jewish council lays him in his own tomb. And on Sunday, women go to anoint the body, and they see the stone rolled away, and they see a young man. I think they says in white clothes,
Dressed in a white robe.
Dressed in a white robe,
sitting on the right side.
Sitting
the tomb.
Sitting in the tomb. And he says, what are you doing here?
Do not be alarmed.
Do not be alarmed. That comes up so often in all the Gospels.
Yeah.
Don't, the presence of something holy, it's easy to be alarmed. In the presence and fear that we get from the world, it's easy to be alarmed. Here, the friend that they had followed from Galilee is dead and buried, and they have cause to be alarmed. Do not be alarmed, they said the man. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth who was crucified. Well, of course. What is it the women expected, Dave?
Yeah.
They expected what?
A dead body.
A dead body. Okay. He's been raised. He's not here. Look, here's the place they laid him. But then these instructions, listen to them carefully. But go, tell his disciples, and interesting, emphasize Peter. Peter, the one who made it as far as the high priest courtyard. Well, tell Peter too, that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. It's my contention that when they forsook him and fled, they went home. And where's home? Galilee. They were getting there as fast as their little feet would carry them. And that's where they're going. And then he adds this, just as he told you. And embedded in the midst of these Mark's recitation of the last days, Jesus says this, just that. I will be raised and I will go ahead of you into Galilee. And there you will see me. But Jesus says that. But then Mark's gospel, as most scholars feel, ends with verse 8. So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. And first thing that comes to mind is, well, where are the appearances and all that? Second thing that comes to mind is the people who are reading this gospel know full well that he appeared to us at some point. They know that. What's important is what the young man says. He is going ahead of you into Galilee, and there you will see him as he told you. Now remember what was said out of the cloud at the Transfiguration. Listen to him. Right. Listen to him. And that's a constant part of being a disciple, is listening to Jesus. And throughout this whole Markan journey, they're not listening. But nonetheless, he is going ahead of you. He is going ahead of you, and there you will see him as you go about the work that Jesus has given you to do. He's going ahead of you. In other words, we continue to follow him. And in the midst of the work of discipleship, we will see him, the risen Lord, in all his glory.
Thank you, Pastor Goodson. That was really great. And I liked how when you started this exegesis, exegesis means interpretation, getting deep into a scripture, that you really talked about one of the struggles the early Christians had was coming to terms with who is Jesus. What happened here? It's kind of like, after a very seismic event in your life and you look back and you go, wow, what was that all about? And and so there comes a real struggle with who is Jesus and how do we know his Messiah, because he certainly doesn't, like Pastor Goodson was saying, doesn't act like one. And I mean, what's a Messiah doing on the cross? What's a Messiah doing being crucified so horribly? What is a Messiah doing, dying? And it's a real struggle for us today. Even I think we all struggle with that question: Who is Jesus? And why do we listen to him? I think that is a very personal question, but one that begs to be answered. To say you can't, it's either yes or no. It's not like maybe. It's either you believe that he is Messiah, the Son of God, or you walk away. And I think that's what I love about the Gospel of Mark. And the way I want to kind of segue into what I'm going to be saying is that we're right in the middle of Holy Week. We just did Sunday the Passion, Palm Sunday. We had your Palm. When we were singing, praises to God. And I always love worship. And one of the reasons why I love worship is because it's in worship that we live the story. It's one thing to read it, but it's in worship where we get to live it. And I'm hoping all of us here are going to be embracing some kind of worship experience as Pastor Goodson and I bring to an end this devotional podcast. It's so important because in worship we experience the story. And what do we experience? I think Pastor Goodson did a great job talking about, Jesus' identity as the Son of Man. It's interesting how, to me, the people who were around Jesus kept on wanting to think of him in human terms. He's a king. He's the Messiah that's going to, bring political change to our country. They had him all pictured in as a person of glory, but Jesus kept saying his identity is in service. Son of Man is a service thing. He came to serve, not to be served. And he lifts up to us how it's the life of service in which people experience Jesus. It's how we serve our families and how we serve our communities, how people serve us. Even a simple waitress, our waiter is serving people. And that is part of who we are as Christians. That's how we get to know Jesus, is through that kind of service of other people in whatever way. As Son of Man, he teaches us this is his identity, is to come to serve us, to help us, to heal us, to strengthen us, to make us stronger, make us more hopeful, make us more joyful. Jesus wants the love of God to serve us. He's the Son of Man. And that becomes a real identity in the cross, because it's in the cross that Jesus truly serves a fallen humanity. He enters into the muck. I like one of the great illustrations. It's like a weightlifter who gets under the huge weight of the earth with all the sin and brokenness, maybe your own sin and brokenness, maybe the things you're struggling with. And on the cross, he gets underneath it and lifts it up, because he is the Son of Man, called to serve and not to be served, which the disciples and the religious leaders at that time, Pilate, they didn't get it. Jesus died as a political death because they thought he was all about self-glory and power. And they wanted to get rid of him. He's also, as Pastor Goodson so well said, it's the Roman centurion who declares Jesus to be the Son of God, the one who reveals to us the power of God. This is the human face of God. I always like to tell people, hey, you wonder what God's like? Is that what your question is? That's what you want to know? Tell me, Pastor Tart, what is God like? It's real simple. He's like Jesus. Jesus is the human face of God. You want to know what God is like? Get to know Jesus, and you'll find God, because he is the Son of God, revelation of God. He's both man, he's both God. keeps two. It's like picking up two handles of a basket of peaches. You got to have both handles to pick it up. Jesus, totally human, totally God. There we experience Jesus' humanity. We also experience Jesus' glory, and that's what the resurrection does. We see the glory of God and the love of God poured out in Jesus on the cross. But we also have this very interesting story about resurrection in Mark, which, like Pastor Goodson and I love the resurrection story in Mark. Why? Because it's simple. It's nothing elaborate. The women go there looking for a crucified dead man, right? And there they meet a young man dressed in white robe, who says, he's not here. Say what you want about Jesus. Try to dismiss him. Try to make him irrelevant. Try to say this, that, and the other. But you know what? There's no body. The tomb is empty. If Jesus is not in the tomb, where is he?
He's going ahead of you.
Yes, exactly what you were talking about. He's going ahead of you. He's out there in the world with us in Galilee. Galilee was the outlands. Everybody expected the Messiah, the Son of God, to show up in Jerusalem, but Jesus said, nope. The young man said, nope, that's not where you're going to find Jesus. And that's why Pastor Goodson and I love the resurrection in Mark, because the people don't encounter Jesus in Jerusalem. They encounter him in Galilee. How do we know the story? The women said nothing to anybody, right? They were mum. They're afraid, as we all are, and terrifying, just, terrifying news. But how do we know then? How do we know he raised from the dead? How do we know this story? This case, they did talk about it. They did tell it. Where? In Galilee. And that's why I love the fact that we're doing the final podcast out here in the world as boats drive by, as people go about their business. Nature continues on.
A final note.
It's out here.
Out here. Final note, ladies and gentlemen, you will hopefully all go to a Easter service, either online or at a location church of your choice.
Live the story.
And that'll be great. But remember, Easter doesn't end when the service is over. Because why?
Jesus is in Galilee.
Jesus is going ahead of you.
He's escaped the box.
Yeah. So you kind of need to get out there and I don't want to say go find him, because he's there, but he's there in the midst of you leaving the Easter celebration and finding new life in whatever you're doing and however you are to other people.
In the service you offer other people too, you find it. And your love for your family, your love for your neighbor, your love for your friends. That's where you find the risen Jesus alive and well. And most of all, pastors always love to get the last one.
Go for it.
We're all going to find out when we die, and Jesus calls our name and raises us from the dead. Then we'll know what these palm branches really meant. Thank y'all for being a part of this podcast, right?
Thank you.
It honors us that you care to listen. We feel really grateful that you took the time to listen to our ruminations about the wonders and joys of God's word. God bless. Like Pastor Goodson said, we hope you have a very, very joyful, celebrated Easter. Remember, as Pastor Goodson will remind you too, Easter lasts for 7 weeks. So we have a lot of rejoicing to do. God bless, and we will see you in worship, hopefully.
Take care.